Hi everyone, we are going to do some predictions today. Some of them, the downloads that I had might have come through just recently, but we will still go through them because I don't know if they have or they haven't. I'm also going to try and do another reading. There will be another one coming up that I've not channeled through yet, and there will also be a royal reading. I think I want to do an update on that. So, this is going to go back to the very beginning of August, right? And I will check August, okay? I will check August out and previously because there are still themes there. So that first week of August I mentioned was going to be rough, and so in terms of crime and just mayhem, I think this would calm down. I did see that there would be something in New York though, and I don't think I've seen anything on thumbnails of New York, so I do think there's going to be a shooting or something in New York. I want to say Manhattan, but I don't know. I also was getting around the 3rd of August, I was getting Shania Twain coming through very strongly. There's going to be some news on her. And sometimes when I see stuff, I don't like to say the name, but I don't necessarily see this the ending of life. But there is going to be news on her, which could be anything. To be honest, I don't want to narrow it down to anything, but you know, I've mentioned in the last reading that I do think there's the demise of an actor. And if it's the one that I see, I will let you know in the next few months, but not in this month. I also mentioned previously about a rock star and some other stuff. So that's one thing. Then the other thing I just wanted to do is give me a moment. So when I was thinking to do an advanced channeling, I thought I'll just record and see if I do an advanced channeling where I get a connection straight away. And straight away I was getting a Zoe, and this was while I was walking, and I was like, okay, is it a Zoe that's coming through, or a Zoe wants to be, or the message is for Zoe. And just now when I was thinking that's what was coming through to me when I was walking the other day, so maybe I tried to connect to that. I got a yes to one of them. So firstly, if you're new to these, I do a mixed bag of questions sometimes as well as predictions. I used to do a lot around the weather, and I have notes on the weather. I might run through them, but because I think a lot is happening around fear, if you just follow the themes I say in terms of weather and use your gut, if your county or country or state is saying about weather, especially when it comes to winds. So, for example, the UK, I know that recently there was it Florence? Not Florence, but there was a storm, and I've got here on the 3rd of August to give the weather predictions that I wanted to give, and one of them was obviously the continued heat that I mentioned at the beginning of the year. That would be for the UK and several countries in the world, extreme heat, but then storms. So the UK, I do think that there will be another one. But so I do mixed bag stuff, and I am getting that, you know, a lot of people already, so I'm diverting because I'm getting stuff coming through that a lot of people are really confused about the Nova Scotia kids. I don't know what's happening with that. I did the last update, and I can't remember if it was a separate reading or it was in the mixed bag reading, and I was getting the energy of like I could see a man really targeting, wanting his voice to be heard, and an older man. And I remember thinking, this reminds me of the bird's eye fish fingers guy who's at sea looking in. And then I was like, when I was picking up, I was sort of not really, I felt like I don't necessarily feel he's got bad intentions, but as opposed to finding the kids, whether he's right or wrong, it's more like making sure I'm right and finding the kids. So in that kind of order. Whereas if you want to find kids, you don't really care or give a toss on if you're right or wrong. You can just say, yeah, whatever, can you just help me find the kids? Well, this is the things that I think is there. anyway, I don't think that was a separate reading. I think it would have been in one of their mixed bag, and it will be either in the thumbnail or it'll be in the description box or in the comments. I've put down the things that the majority of things that I cover, because sometimes when it's questions, it's one off, and I try to remember what I've covered to put in the thumbnail or in the comment box. So they're very quick, so it's worth listening in and tuning in and supporting the channel if you enjoy it. I mean, I would like to do a video every day. I tried that for some time, and I was doing a couple of videos when there was cases that was just like brewing, but it didn't really help the algorithm. And so it's about continued motivation. So with the Nova Scotia kids, what did I want to say is, when I don't know, it's just is coming like that. It's just been reminded to me about the Nova Scotia kids that the energy I feel is very convoluted. There's a lot of confusion, and I can see the Seven of Cups card. A lot of convoluted energies is around it, confusion and illusion, and I feel like that is just spread out too much now, where the true essence is losing it. So if you want me to cover that, whether it's looking at analyzing, also BK, I put the last reading up, and I did say, do you want us to cover it, and we can look at about analyzing and questioning stuff for learning, and even if it's just not the psychic part of the reading, but both facts and the psychic part. So always vote for those readings. Okay, so give me a moment to just ground. So it's Zoe coming through, but it's interesting. I'm getting a girl who is called Zoe, who's probably got light brunette hair. It's like a cut like here, and it's got a bit of fringe. She looks like a bit of a plain Jane with a long white skirt and possibly a cardie, a pink cardie. And those kind of old type of they're not old, but like, you know, ages ago you would see them, the white tennis shoes that they would wear, or I call them tennis shoes. They're a bit like trainers with the long skirt and maybe a top and a cardie. She's coming through as a Zoe, but there's also a Zoe that wants to deliver a message. And if I don't get it right now, because I like to get instantaneously, and something about bicycle, um, the message is that basically we see you. So whoever's lost a Zoe, it's kind of like we see you. But there is this woman that I've just described here, and whether she's like somebody who's currently living, and Zoe wants to deliver the message for this woman, or this woman is part of the family that Zoe's delivering the message to. There's something, or it could be her in the younger years, and I get a kind of a yes there. I get like there's some kind of tragedy that happened here. And it's kind of like, okay, so I started itching, and Spirit was like, focus on what the left ear would mean. So it could be something happened with her left side of the face. It's kind of like she wants to give a message that she's fine. She's actually quite bubbly, but there's something there. There's a lurking energy, and I'm not quite sure. There's something where there is a tragedy that gives me that lurking energy, but she's fine. And I'm getting a dog there with her, and I feel like it's a black Labrador. He's kind of chubby. He's definitely not a puppy, and he's not bouncing around. It's not it's not like connected to her. It's not like totally attached to her, but it's kind of like the dog wants to be closer to the hair than she is to it. That's coming through, but she basically wants to say that she's fine and bubbling and living life. So that's just come through from her. She does miss her curls, so I don't know what that's about. And something about freckles on her face, but this is for a granddaughter or grandkids that have got freckles on their face, or a younger generation that are are kids that have freckles on their face. And she watches them, and that, you know, she's, as much as she tries to make it uplifting for them and her loved ones, they uplift her when she watches them, and she comes down to be next to them quite a lot around these kids. And these kids could have like a puppy or a smaller dog, and I do get a bit of a puppy, a play energy, and the dog is like a light brown auburn dog, fully that color, with these kids. Now this could be going back to the childhood. I'm getting a no. Okay. Somehow this other woman is still here. This other woman I can see in this smaller kid, the smaller girl. But basically Zoe wants to let, and there's something about losing a leg or something, which tells me there was a tragedy in terms of something she experienced when living, or towards the end of her life, or at the end of her life. I asked, did you go when you was old? And she go, and I, as I asked now, it's like a no. But it seems like when something happened, maybe this tragedy, she was just living but not living her life. She seems like quite a bubbly, outgoing person. Nevertheless, she's found that bubbling, this is the message, she's found that bubbly person again. So anyone that witnessed her in the later life, that was, she was just kind of maybe depressed from what had happened, etc., until she did go, or if she went via this tragedy, she's found her bubbly self again. And as much as she loves being around the kids and uplifting them and being bubbly around them, they really give her a lot of good energy as well. So that's what I get. If anyone gets this, you can claim it. Obviously the channel is quite small, but that is your advanced channeling. So anyone that listened in, thank you, and we will continue for what I've got. So I got a question on, will Reform try to use USA the right side tactics to undermine Labour and government? And I get a strong yes on that. So this is probably someone from the UK asking, did Duck do business deals with Epi, and will it come out? He did, and it will come out. I think, you know, if you use your common sense, it is there. I do want to say though that I've always mentioned about Clinton, and Giselle is very worried about Clinton, even though he's not in power. So I think there was a closeness in terms of not like business, money, hotels, etc., with Clinton, but I could be wrong. That's what I get though. Okay, and it's in the Giselle. And just before I get asked, because I've got a feeling it's going to be down there, I've mentioned this in the Patreon that Epi was heavily sedated and then he was taken out. Okay, however, anyway, he was taken out. Hi Zain, it's Sarah. Will the EU fall apart? And if not, where is it going? It seems to be a bit unclear. So yeah, it feels like it's just the EU standing, but it's not. It's not standing like together against a political stand or anything, is it? Which is kind of good in a way, but you just see it as a countries, but as opposed to like a big decision makers, you just see a group of countries. Well, that's how I see it, but it will stand long term, and I think some more countries will eventually join the EU. The government of Lithuania and seem to be having trouble. This could be with Russia. Will this be happening, or is it something that's just being publicized? I do think that there's going to be trouble with Russia for the next couple of years. So I don't know if that's actually happening. One of the downloads that I was getting is the BBC, the British Broadcasting Company, are having financial issues. Now, I don't know about anything to do with this, and what they really need to do, so if I was in the BBC, is you really need to revamp and update your way, because if they're losing finances, there could be higher licensing fees, I guess. So they could come into near of losing their existence as the BBC. But I think it's going to face challenges until it really gets the nudge. It's like us when we need to learn a lesson. We don't get the nudge until we're at dire, some of us. But if it takes the lessons that's happening now, it's not going to get worse. But I think it's going to get a bit worse. They're going to face challenges. But I think they will evolve in time before totally coming at a loss, like being extinct. Like they don't seem to feel the urgency to evolve, strategize, update the way they are. But I think they will, over the next couple of years, make some moves, maybe use other platforms or streaming platforms, because I think a lot is moving away from TV, and I mentioned it in my last predictions. The Los Angeles reported a large head and narrow neck like ET, or a creature. Is it true? I don't feel energy from that creature, so I'm going to go with that's a hoax. If you want to add more, you can do. Again, about AI in the workforce. AI in the workforce, which I've mentioned, is going to change rapidly in a very good way the health sector, which means it could change the health workforce, but it can't replace humans. And I wish people would understand this, those that are hiring, those that are in powerful positions. But it will accelerate like the healthcare system and other stuff. For example, timeframes of your waiting list, because it's filtering out some of the stuff that it can do rather than human. I think it will also be used in medical insurance, by the way. So whether that's checks via AI, and so, it could be an app via your phone. But yeah, I do see advancements there as well. So if you check the previous read, you'll see where I talk about AI as well. And I've talked about it in the past as well. So I do get that Hillary Clinton as well is in some trouble. And I don't know what that's about, but that's just come through. Okay. One question here. Elections. Will electrical elections of the US be audited? And will there be anything else coming out about elections? So yes, there will be more coming out about the election that occurred, whether it's right or wrong, but more fuss will come out about it. And some of that might be true, some of it might. I want to tell you, most of the elections have international interference. Most of them have some other interference involved. There's not one party that is like straight and narrow. Okay. So I just want to say that if they can win in the way they can, I mean, look at Democrats were using pop stars and celebrities, but that method has long gone. We don't buy into that anymore. So they were a bit late doing that. Anyway, with many talking about ETs, psychics seem to be talking a lot about ships in the skies, and it's all over YouTube, Zain. Okay. I think we need to be careful, because I think, to some extent, obviously there are ETs and creatures, but I think in terms of ships of the ETs, etc., we're way off yet of that. We still need to accept sort of their existence, and more and more people having that exposure before we start seeing that sort of stuff. And I think by the time we see that sort of stuff, some of it's going to be drones, some of it's going to be our own delivery services via the skies. So I would just be careful, because I think, some psychics are absolutely amazing, very sharp, and they meditate to get, what I'm doing right now. They probably sit and meditate so they get sharper answers. But they've got a bigger audience and they're able to, because they've got some income coming in that way. But what I notice is, like, people don't really like psychics that also say stuff that is true and not conspiracy, or something that doesn't relate to common sense seems to be bought quite a lot, because if it kind of makes sense to someone who's not in tune with their psychic abilities or their gut feelings, they're like, well, that's not psychic, but that's your answer. I've got nothing more. I'm not going to make a conspiracy theory out of nothing. So I think, I'm going to go on to, so, just, I don't see this being very close right now. As always, I think there's always paranormal activity. I think always God, the universe, sends certain things for us to see what we do in terms of making sense. And then we also get practices and hoax and tests by our government or whatever. Disclaim this for entertainment purposes only. Gulf Coast of southeast, I still see storms, water warnings. Like I said in the beginning, I think New York, Manhattan, like a crime loner attack kind of man. I do think there's going to be an aircraft collision or a near collision. And I see a commercial one in the US, but also I think this is outbound as well. Like I said, I think there's going to be quite a few navigation issues. And this could have been from any time from the 3rd until when you see this, or it could be further down. Weather, while I'm here, let's do that. Asia typhoon. I mentioned Japan and China. I think that's going to come through. Indonesia, listen to any weather alerts you get or rumble warnings. I think there's going to be September, October time with volcanic kind of eruption that we're going to hear of. Alaska, still be on the whereabouts, on the lookouts. Weather storms that are wind, water, still I see that. Look at that. I think, mid-August into September, there could be a health thing arising. I don't know where this state is, but I'm getting it, Atlanta. There could be like a hurricane there. And then, like I said, Gulf Coast upwards. And there could be tornadoes if I go, I want to say kind of Midwest. And then Cali up northwest. It could even reach Canada. Could be like just feelings of rumbles. Wildfires, I've mentioned Turkey before, and I think that came true, Cyprus, Turkey. But I think there's still wildfire warnings. If you get it Australia, I would say bushfires, and New Zealand, but more southern. So, New Zealand, southern, listen to your earthquake warnings. UK heat, but also storms, and downpour of rain. I still get Iceland, and possibly Italy could have an energy I need to tap into in terms of an earthquake or some kind of nature kind of, maybe an eruption. Germany, I see some storms for, and I do see some parts of Europe having extreme heat as well. I do see tech, cyber issues, navigation issues, saying it again, and I think there is going to be a major hacking that occurs. And I believe there is an ongoing major spy hacker from one country to another country. So this could be their secret agent onto the other country. I do want to say, I also see Trump, so we need to look out for that. But I do want to say that behind the scenes, Duck and Putin are making a deal. Duck is not making this deal out of the love for Putin, it's for another reason. So if you're interested in that, I will include the Middle East and the reason and what they're doing. I will put that in a separate video, comment in the box. For the UK, I saw, like, I'm going to leave what I see for the royals in the next royal reading, because I saw something around Camilla, I saw around Prince Catherine and William. I see a new house, but what I've always known is that when they move into like Windsor or Sandringham or wherever that they're appointed, they don't move out. But I see a new home and I see excitement, but I also see delays or a challenge or something. Don't know what that's about, but I'm just going to go with the flow in the reading. But I see like a castle that could already be eroded, or part of it's eroded and there's only part of the castle left, or it could be a cliff drop, and I see that dropping down. So where is it? It's not the cliffs of Dover, is it? That they're stone white, but I see something like that. I do think we're going to come across August, September or October an NHS scandal around a medical professional. Now, this brings me to Lucy Letby. Okay, I believe Lucy Letby is guilty, but I'm going to read the cards. So firstly, let's just, I actually do tarot predictions with the cards, but I've still got predictions that I think would be good to get through. I might split this video or take out the advanced channeling. I don't know. Because I know people say that they like shorter readings, but this is not like a tarot reading for your sign where I can go, there's a cards, okay, there you go, Cancer, that's it, done. It's kind of like a bit of channeling. So I do think this is a scandal. Yeah, she's guilty, straight out the back. She's guilty, okay. I don't know why I get 7. Is it 7 that she's guilty of, or they're trying to pin on her? I get that she's guilty. Because there's a whole thing going on about this, isn't there? And I don't really know the case, but I've pulled the cards, got the Judgment, and the secondary cards were not important. Then is she guilty in totality of all the babies? And I get 7 around that, so I don't know if I don't know if she's been asked about more, or there's something around the figure. But I get she's guilty of all that she's been said to be guilty of, but then I get a 7 on the side. So, and when I say is it only 7, I get a no. So I don't know what that is, because I was wondering whether and 7 keeps coming through like really strongly. So I don't know if she's guilty of only 7, or the 7 that something about 7. Yeah, so NHS scandal, social media tighter restrictions. I mentioned that, and I think we'll start seeing that a lot more. Prince William, what I said. I think we're going to see a resignation from someone in top post, and more about aircraft navigation, airplanes. I see a blackout in 2 countries, possibly more, but I see 2 countries and possibly a third. And I actually see blackouts are going to occur more more often than what they normally have, or what we would expect for our advancement and our day and age over the next 2 years. And this could be sporadic over different countries. I do think that there's going to be a health legislation announcement that, or some kind of health announcement that is actually for the greater good. And I don't know if I mentioned this in August, because it is an August prediction that I've got written here. And this could be August, September. So I am repeating it. So I've said it in August. It seems like I still get that quite. It's for the greater good of us. And I also see good news around farmers, which is going to work out. Maybe it might not look for good news, but it actually works out in the greater good for all farmers. August, September. And it's interesting. I don't know if William's trying to protect the farmers or doing something around farming, or is into farming. There's something there that's I was getting earlier. I did have a prediction validation. I had a few, but I did write one in here. The airplane tech issue, and oh, United Airlines commercial US flight had to halt. So thank you for whoever sent that through. Princess Catherine, we're going to wait on that. I was thinking to do a Megan and Dorian, Megan and her father read, because I get the energy between the two, but only if you want it. When I said I saw Trump, I saw Duck in some kind of panicky situation, and this could be a little bit of trouble, but more like panicky, not anything he can pick himself out, but he gets himself in a bit of a tizzy wizzy. I also see that he removes someone. It's either right now happening, or it might have just happened like a day or two ago, and he gets someone else in, and so he's removed someone, but he brings in someone else, someone new. It's not going to take too much time before he brings someone new, but what a whipping for someone's out in his administration. And this could be like a chief of something, those kind of roles that I don't really know who is there or what is happening. I had a question about the UK Online Act, Safety Act, which is provisions for online services for the underage. I think Australia is going to be tagging on this. And the question was, do you think the US are going to also? And I believe it will pass. Okay. But I don't think it's all what is being said of. I was going to do a reading on this, because I think some of it is actually to try and control people outside that underage. And what is the underage for the UK? I don't know what this one is. I have to Google, but I do get the number 16. I do see Australia. So I do think Australia is going to tag on this, or has. I mean, last year I said this year we will see web restrictions, and it will be for the greater good of our children and mental health. But I think this one that they're putting in seems to be quite direct. And I do get something about YouTube or TikTok, and then the other one said, well, if you're doing it for this one, you need to do it for that platform, because we're both social media. I don't know what's happening with that, but I do see like it was either directed at one social media platform, maybe YouTube, and YouTube was like, well, why can't you implement it on TikTok as well? Or TikTok said implement it on YouTube. And I don't think this is part of the act itself, but there's something going on, and I think some of it's to stop what freedom of speech, not only for the underage. A podcast, or someone called James, has been talking about 6G technology to be distributed worldwide. Is this going to come through? Is this like wireless technology? I feel like there's a lot of eyes and interest on this. Can someone tell me who this James person is? I'd love to look this up. So whether it's manufacturers or researchers, it seems like there's a lot of people that are really, really interested, like just loads of eyes on this. And I think if they do bring it in, which they will bring it in, but it won't be immediately, I think this is going to take a few years to come in. Not very long, no, so not like a decade or something, maybe half a decade or 4 years. I can't see it less than 3 to 4 years. I think it's around the 4, 5, 6 mark. Because I think it's also going to have challenges to be implemented. And with that 6G wireless, I would worry for them if they implement it now, because I don't see our data being protected. So I think at the moment, there's a lack of guidelines in terms of our data and personal data, which honestly, they pretend, oh, due to the Data Protection Act, we don't have your records anymore. But we are stating this. So how are you stating that if you don't have our records? That's the UK gov for you, the system at the moment around supporting people that need support. Anyway, more global movement on human trafficking and tracking down human trafficking and other crimes via AI, which I've mentioned in my last reads, and I'm getting told to mention it again. I think AI is going to be, if you're in the education sector, you're a CEO or whatever of a college institute, if you are not looking at new ways of educational, your college, your uni is going down. Get with it. There's going to be educational breakthrough. I've been saying this in the last 3 months of my reading. Education, every time a little bit more of education, sometimes a framework, sometimes it's a funding that I've covered. AI will be making that breakthrough. I do get a prophecy. The prophecy was like in some countries, so let me know if this is in your country. I'm getting possibly Canada. There seems to be like a climate nature stopping. So the way I'm seeing that is actually trying to stop us getting to nature by banning going to a certain forest or a wood for some reason. I don't know what reason they would say. Maybe they say there's poisonous trees or something. But if anyone could tell me that, I do see that, or that is coming up. Something new that I got today. India, I have to warn you, between the mid of August to the mid of September, you are going to go through a rough patch. Whether this is targeted attacks, but I think it's going to be internal. So I don't think there's that many Indian people, but internal violence, violence in the internal borders from state to state in India. Also, there could be issues around aircrafts, economy stocks, that kind of thing. I would monitor, tap in with your financial advisor, because it could plummet. I just see a rough patch for India, which could include the Indian president as well. So that is my predictions. Hopefully I've not missed anything. Now I have to have a good... Oh, I did have stuff from last time, didn't I? By the way, I do think woke culture will have its backlash. You know, they've just taken it out of way out of context. That scared the life out of me. Way out of context. One second, because I don't know if I've got more. That I've got one. I think I'm going to wrap it up here. And I think what I'm going to do is cover another read if we've got time. But that's really what I get in this prediction. So if you enjoyed it, you can like, you can subscribe, you can let me know in the comments. If there's more to anything that I've said or stated, there is another one that I'm going to be doing because I am getting things coming through. Let me know. This is actually not too long, so I think I'll just keep it as it is. And I'll see you in the next one, everyone. Stay blessed and bye for now.